It has now been some time since the Upper House completed its inquiry into the light rail project, into the Sydney and South East Light Rail project, but it was a lengthy and considered debate, lengthy and considered inquiry. It stretched for many months. We held hearing after hearing after hearing, and it played an important role in providing the ability for a government contractor who otherwise would not have been able to speak to the public about what was truly going on this botched program. And so it is with that comment in mind that I, in taking note of the government response to our very considered and detailed report, that it's a pretty flimsy response, to be perfectly honest, Mr Deputy President. And I think it's timely then that the Auditor-General released a report just last week to show that the true cost of the light rail project was now $3.1 billion. This is a 12-kilometre light rail line. A 12-kilometre light rail line, supposed to cost $1.6 billion, now costs $3.147 billion. And I think it goes to the importance of this inquiry that we were able to highlight the issues around lack of planning and the way that the financial and business case underpinning it, which the Auditor-General showed us last week, did not correctly assess the project. We can talk, the inquiry highlighted the absolutely heartbreaking stories of small businesses and residents along the route, small businesses driven to ruin along the route that came and shared their stories with us in an incredibly moving way. Journey time. When assessing whether we should be spending money on a project, a significant amount of money on a project, the same amount of money on a project that this government is now seeking to take away from hardworking public servants, including our frontline workers, during this pandemic, $3.147 billion. The journey time was never clear. And the government, even in its response, says that they're going to continue to refine it. We're continuing to work on journey time analysis. Well, now we know, thanks to the Auditor-General. They were promising 38 to 39 minutes. As we were told in the inquiry, the Randwick Council estimated that it would be much longer than that. In March this year, 97% of the journeys are taking 51 minutes. 51 minutes. This is actually longer than the existing bus trips were taking in the inquiry. The need for Transport for New South Wales to communicate clearly with residents. What we consistently heard from residents was that they had either limited information, or when they sought to contact the contractor and raise concerns, that they weren't able to make those complaints. And I think that this is really important. The government in its response says that basically that the primary response is up to the management. Oh, sorry, I'll quote: "The management of complaints is primarily the responsibility of AllTrack." That might be the case, Mr Deputy President, but as a government agency, you should be responsive to the people. And speak just briefly about the issue of the Doncaster Avenue residents. These are residents who live in Kensington, whose properties immediately face the stabling yards, the new stabling yards. And what we found was that what they came and told us in an incredibly moving way, was that it wasn't just the construction noise that they were being subject to, but they now had floodlights into their backyards 24 hours a day, into their houses. This is like stadium-style lighting coming directly into their houses. And again, they couldn't get even a returned phone call from the contractor. In desperation, they sought out meetings, they sought out options. This was something that was not going to be solved with the end of the project, as the government kept saying. Just, early on the government said to small businesses, just take a holiday to Bali for 6 months. Just pack up shop for 6 months and don't worry. In the context of the current promises around infrastructure that this government is making, that they need to listen to the community. They need to listen to residents of New South Wales. They need to listen to small businesses as they feel the impact of these infrastructure projects. I'll come finally to recommendation 20 and the incredibly heartbreaking testimony that we received from small businesses And I have to say, Mr. Deputy President, small businesses are a pretty resilient bunch. And these were people who came before us at the inquiry. They said they had never asked for support previously. They had, taken it as a bit of a mark of respect that they were able to create businesses, create jobs for others. The mental health effects on them as a result of this construction that didn't drag on for months as promised, that dragged on for years and years and years, and the government refused to respond. Deputy President, this was an incredibly important inquiry from the last Parliament, from the newly formed Public Accountability Committee, and I would call on the government to take these reports seriously, to respond in a meaningful way, and particularly as they consider their next infrastructure projects, to take note of the devastating financial and mental health impacts that these had on residents, on small businesses along this route. Mr. Deputy President, the people of New South Wales deserve better.